Hello everyone, how's it going? Today I have an interesting topic to talk about, which is pretty 5CP specific, and it will pain me to say as a demo, but it does relate to Ubercharges and it relates to dropping players. So Demo, of course, is a very droppable class because he's a very easy class to hit, so sometimes you just die before your medic can do anything to save you. But you're also a class that can, in some cases, be intentionally dropped. So we're going to offer some examples of this and why you might want to do it. So for starters, let's quick cover our bases and talk about Ubercharges. So Ubers are, of course, the centralizing mechanic of competitive TF2. And pretty much everything plays around Ubers. If a team has Uber advantage, as in they have, a higher charge than the other team, then when they have Uber and the other team doesn't, you can theoretically use your Uber charge to become invincible, walk to the other team, and kill them all, right? So the counterplay to this, if you're the team at disad, is to play a disad positioning, meaning you're playing much more passively, so as not to be all killed and, losing points and losing the game if the other team just decides to right click and kill you all. Oh man, that roller into pipe. Iron Bomber is good, folks. But anyway, yeah, that's, basic Uber disad situation. That being said, with that in consideration, I'm just repeating myself here, if the other team is playing disad, then their passivity and positioning makes it so that getting and pushing into the next point without using your Uber becomes much easier. So those are the basic mechanics as far as add and pushing with add goes. What do you do in an even situation? Well, a lot of the time you will just sack players, which is like pressure, and then usually intentionally bomb in a soldier or something, or send some players to go die in an attempt to force the other team's medic. In the simplest terms. And how many you sack and what you do to assist the sack as far as pressuring goes is all point specific and whatnot. But the basic principle is you give up some small number of players, a small enough number such that you don't expect to lose the point you're on if the other team tried to pressure, meaning all they can really do is just send a sack back in an attempt to break the stalemate, get the other team to use their Uber, etc. Now, in some cases, you see Uber exchanges in which both teams have Uber, and let's say a team tried to pressure really deep. They're maybe even getting some space through the doorway into the next point. It's really tenuous for the defending team because you don't want the other team to establish positioning on your point. You didn't even want to let them through the doors to begin with, and now the pressure is mounting. Things are not looking so great, so you definitely need to do something about it. And in these cases, you might see Uber exchanges where you use your Uber charge, have the other team force because, they're all collected in a door or whatever, to where they can't avoid this damage. And then as a result, you release some gas from the valve and you ease up that pressure and hopefully buy yourself some time to reestablish your hold and force them back out again. So exchanges can be really nice for that type of situation. And this is where the topic of today's video comes in, because you don't if you're the team that's getting used in on for an exchange and they're trying to get you to use Uber, you don't necessarily have to save your players. And you don't necessarily have to use. And that is a decision that you are tasked with. So for something that's important about exchanges is the post, as in whatever fight happens afterwards. And generally speaking, you don't want to be down a bunch of players for the post because you're presented with a disadvantageous situation. Now, of course, this can be rectified to some degree by having Uber while the other team used. So in some cases, dropping players in order to have a worse post in the sense that you're down players and you can't push into the next point like you were trying or something, and instead might have to play a little bit passive on the point that you were holding, so that you can, get your spawners and whatever and then refight with the ad. That can be a useful situation. And this happens most often with a demo. So a very classic situation, a team is trying to pressure into the next point, getting a ton of value, and getting some space, potentially. And the other team uses, to try and exchange, they run at the demo because the demo is, generally the easiest class to shoot at if you're trying to get the other team to force, because again, just big and slow. The medic is usually a little bit further behind, harder to get to, and potentially harder to get damage onto, not just because of their positioning, but because of their speed. So the demo is a common thing to shoot at. And in a case like this, if you as the medic know beyond a doubt that you don't have to use, and you know that you're only really losing this demo for it, then in many cases, it's totally worth preserving your Uber such that you have full ad and giving up your demo's life. And this can suck as the demo, but actually I like, in fact, to call this for my med, because a lot of meds will like to just save their players, right? Because it's not an objective, like, bad situation to just save your demo and then maybe have like the push fizzle out and you can't do too much. And in some cases as well, if you have some player advantage, then the post will still be advantageous for you and you can still push into the next point. So again, this is like a really like knife's edge kind of situation in which both options can totally be good, and figuring out which is better is definitely takes a fair amount of experience. But you can totally make the argument that even if your post is advantageous, and even if you can like get second if you save your demo, if you drop him and still have like the players be relatively even or something, such that you can maybe even push into the next point without your demo at all, and then you have add into like last, for example, if you were pressuring into there too, then that could be even better. So it really is a matter of judging what the post is going to look like, meaning if you're already down players, can you even afford to lose more, versus maybe they're down some players, so it's not going to sting as much, versus everyone's alive, it's a very easy hold for us. Because again, if you just lose your demo and no one else, then you probably don't have to give up the point that you were holding, meaning you get to kind of return to that almost even Uber's stalemate situation, which you have control of these chokes, they have control of these chokes from their side, and you can just kind of wait for your demo to show up and then dry push or use or whatever, just play the ad. So situations like that, it can totally be worthwhile, but hairier situations in which maybe your soldier sacked and died for the force, but your demo's too close, yeah, times like that you might want to use, because losing a demo and a soldier, you're, in all likelihood going to lose the point you're holding. But again, if you are a comfortable team dry pushing, then you could easily dry push into that point that you had control of, retake it, and then still have add into second. So again, if I'm making anything clear, it's that a situation like this can be complicated, because yeah, there's just so many factors to consider as far as the state of players, and the game state, as well as you as a team, what you're good at, what you're bad at. Because if you're a team that's just not really good at pushing with ad, then it might be worth just default trying to play that exchange and play the better exchange, or the better post, stuff like that. Is there other stuff for me to talk about here? I don't know if there is. This may have ended up being a short one. I just think in general, presenting the idea that dropping players, usually a player or something, in order to hold on to the Uber when you know you won't have to use, and that the only thing that you're thinking about using for is to save someone else. In cases like that, there's an actual decision to be made. And in cases like that, even if, you make one decision, it's at least worth considering what the alternatives were. It's at least something to look at as a potential to kind of improve your play, I guess, because these are game decisions to make based on whatever factors you want to consider. So it's not just a default always save these players here that some people think it might be. So yeah, I think that's it. At least consider whether dropping your demo might be worth it, in order to have ad, I guess is the most succinct way I can put it. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all later.